Today we have a new topic called writing a tune. Let's take a look at page 43. You can see in your exercise the bass line is given to us with the chords under it. Just keep in mind that you also need to move your melody in contrary motion. So first of all, let's create some rhythms that we can use here. You can have any kind of rhythm that you wish. You can have two quavers and a crotchet. There are so many ways to write a rhythm. So basically, you need to use the chord tones of the progression given here. So you have the one chord of C major. So you need to use the notes of the tonic triad in your first bar. And on bar 2, we have the 5 chord of C major. That is going to be a G major triad. So you need to use the notes G, B, and D whenever you see the 5 chord. Okay, so then again bar 3 we need to use the 5 chord, and bar 1 again we need to use the 1 chord. Okay, so we can select any kind of notes from here. So I'm gonna keep in mind the bass line is moving a fifth apart. So I want to move the opposite direction of this. So let's start with C. My target notes are the first note of every bar. So I'm going to make sure that I need to move it contrary motion. So I'm going to have a G below here. If I decide to use a G up here, that's going to be parallel because you can see both my melody and the bass line is moving a fifth up. So I don't need to use that. I need to avoid it. So I'm going to go down to a G this time. So you can see it's moving the opposite direction. I can move the G up an octave, but make sure I don't use a G below because I don't want my melody to go the same direction. So you need to avoid that. Let's say maybe I don't want an octave here. I'll just stick to the same G. So you need to end your melody on the tonic and make sure it's a long note that you use at the end. Okay, so I'm gonna make this a crotchet, and now you see I can complete the missing beats with any notes of the triad. So there's also one thing that we can do here. It's a very common ending to use the 7th note leading to the tonic at the end. It sounds very smooth. So I'm going to move my melody up to a B, and then it leads to the ending note on C. And here I might just add a G. I can even add a E if I want to. Right, so here's my melody. It's simple. Let's play this and see. Let's move on to the next question. So I have my rhythm in 6/8 time, and now let's start writing the notes. So this is in the key of F major. So we have the 1 chord of F major. So make sure you write the notes that you need for the chord. So the 1 chord as F, A, C, and the 5 chord of F major starts on C, C, E, G, the C major chord. So I can write an F, A, C, and then go down to an F. I'm gonna go down to a G, C, and E. Next I can use a G up here. I'm gonna use 2 G's. So I'm gonna have my last note as a F. I'm gonna use the E, the 7th note of the scale that leads to the last note. So I'm done with this question. Let's go to the last one. We have the scale of D major. So I'm gonna write the rhythm first. And my last note, I'm going to have a longer note. So this is the scale of D major. You need to end on a D. Let's find out the chord tones of this scale. We have the 1 chord. We have D, F sharp and A. Just remember that we don't need to write the sharps because the key signature is already given. So I'm going to write the 5 chord is going to be my A major chord. So I'm going to start with a D and go up to an F, to an A, and then I can use a higher octave because you can see the bass line is moving to a lower octave, which is an A. So I'm going to move my melody up an octave and then go down to a C, the 7th note of the scale, and it leads to the tonic. So let's play this melody and see. Okay, so that's it. So let's move on to the next page. We have the second question. Use the notes from the tonic or dominant triads shown by the chord symbols to write a tune above the bass line. So this time you have to use the chord symbols given to you. The first bar you have to use the F major triad, and second bar you need to use the C major triad. Okay, so those are the 2 chords we need to use. So here I have my rhythm, and let's write out the notes. So in this exercise you need to be careful of what scale we are going to use. So you can see the key signature is given. There's a B flat. It means we are in the key of F major and we are starting on F and we need to end on F. Okay, so you can see my target notes from F to C moving in contrary motion, and then an octave down since we have the same C given here, and then we ended on the F. Next we have D major. So I'm going to write a rhythm first. So I'm going to use the chord tones of D major. So D, F sharp and A, and then we have the 5 chord of D major is the A. Try to avoid huge leaps of intervals within your melody. So most importantly, try and play them on your keyboard. So I'm going to go from E, A, C sharp, and then finally I can end on a D here. Alright, so I'm done with this. You can go to the next one. So we have the first chord as a B flat major, and next we have the 5 chord of B flat major. So here's my rhythm that I'm going to use. So make sure you end on a tonic. Now we can fill in the notes. So in this case you can see the bass line is moving an octave down. So I don't want my melody also to move an octave down. So I'm going to move the opposite direction. I can even use a higher F or any other chord tone that's given. Okay, so I'm done with this. Next you can move on to the last question. We have a C major because we have no key signature. So the first chord is a C chord, and in bar 3 we have a G chord. Here's my rhythm, and let's write the notes. So I'm going to start this melody with the C and end on a C, and let's fill in the rest. Next I'm going back to chord tone C. Next chord we have again a C major chord, so I'm going to move it down to a G and then move back up to a C. Next we have the G chord, so I'm going to move the C down 1 step to chord tone B and move it up to a D. So you can see my melody is moving smoothly in thirds, and you see a pattern that repeats. So make sure you have an idea of what you're writing and then play them out and see what they sound like. So I'm done with this. Let's move on to page 45. We have some more exercises in the minor keys. This time you have to remember that we raise the 7th note in minor keys. So it's already given here. You might want to highlight it. Here we have been given the chord progression, and we can write some melodies using the chord tones. I'm gonna go up the triad of A minor, A, C, E, and then go down to an A and a C. Then I can go up to the 5 chord, which is an E, another third up. I want to have the 7th note for a smoother ending. You can end with any chord tone. There's no hard and fast rules, but it's a common type to end the 7th leading to the tonic at the end. But you can also use either of these notes. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay, I'm done with that. So you double check your answers and make sure you raise the 7th note. And let's move on to the next question. We have an E minor. So I'm going to have 6/8 time signature. I'm going to have 2 dotted crotchets on each bar, and then maybe a crotchet and a quiver on my 3rd bar, just to make a little difference. And then I'm going to end with a longer note. So let's write out the notes of the E minor triad. We have E, G, and B. And for the 5 chord, we have the B major, B, raise the 7th, that's the middle note, B, D sharp, and F. Okay, I'm going to start with a E and end on a E. So the first thing I do is write the last note before I forget to end on the tonic. So make sure you raise the 7th, and let's write the stems. So I'm done with this question. So take your time this week to be creative, and you don't have to copy my answers here. You can write something different. Alright, so next one I have a G minor. So the 1 chord of G minor, we have G, B, and D. And the 5 chord, we have D, F sharp, and A. So in this exercise, we need to have 3 quiver beats in a bar. Remember to raise the 7th note. We should have an F sharp as your 7th note. Right, so I'm done with this. Let's move on to the next question. The last question, we have a D minor. So we need to have the D minor tonic triad, D, F, and A. And the 5 chord is starting on A, C sharp, and E. Make sure you raise the 7th. So when you're writing an accidental or a sharp, and if your note is repeated twice, you only have to write it on the first note. Just remember that you don't need to write sharps on every single C. This applies only if you have repeated notes in the same bar. Now next I'm going to a C sharp again here, but I need to add the sharp because it's a fresh bar again. Right, so let's move on to the next question. We have question number 2. Again, we have been given the chord symbols here in minor scales, so we need to write a tune above the bass line. So the first one is again a D minor, and your time signature here is a 4/4 time signature. So I'm going to have 4 crotchets on my first bar, and then second bar I'm going to have 2 crotchets and 1 minim, and I'm going to repeat it for the 3rd bar, and the last bar I'm just going to have a semi-breve. This time I'm going to end on a lower D and start on a higher D. The D minor, so we have a D, F, A chord, so I'm going to use D, F, D, F. The next chord we have a A major, A, C, E, so I'm going to start with E because E is closer to the F. I just want to have a smooth leading to the next bar. Still in the same chord, I'm going to go up to a E and repeat the same notes. So maybe I can have an ostinati. E, C sharp, A. And here is my answer. Alright, so once you're done with that, you can do the last 2 questions. And on the number 3, the last question, you have to add some musical words and symbols that you see on page 51. So you can add any kind of musical symbols that you have learned so far. It can be tempo markings, can be dynamics, anything that you like. So I'm going to have some dynamic markings here. Let's say I want to start this soft. Next I'm going to have a tempo marking. Maybe I can play this in andante. Okay, so you can have staccatos, articulation marks, whatever that you wish. And next I can add vivo. So I'm going to have accent marks here. And next one I can add dolce. It means sweetly. So I've added staccatos for all of these quavers. And then I can have a dynamic marking. So I'm going to add mezzo piano. And you can add tenuto marks if you wish. So make sure you write the tempo marks at the top and the dynamics at the bottom. Right, so the final touches are over, and you can do the same for the next question. And that's it for this week. See you next time.